Hey guys, it's Godbars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 298th episode of my series where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it has, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. So even though it pretty much feels like I just started off this set of modern classics, here we already are closing in on the last three picks of the group, and while the final two I have coming up are definitely heavier hitters, in the scheme of highly known, widely celebrated hip-hop LPs from the 2010s, I would maintain that this personal favorite of mine is every bit as experimental and forward-thinking as anything I've covered on the channel. Of course I'm talking about Paraffin, the third studio full-length from groundbreaking alternative hip-hop duo Armand an extremely innovative, talented, and experimental Backwoodz Studioz based act comprised of a lucid and veteran of the page Billy Woods, who together actually grabbed the #1 spot last year for my top 50 hip-hop albums of 2023 with their stellar release We Buy Diabetic Test Strips, and I actually have the top 50 for this year coming up pretty soon, so stay tuned for that. There were multiple instances in the past where I considered covering Haram, their amazing 2021 collaboration with The Alchemist, since before finding Paraffin here, that was the only Armand record I had on vinyl. However, I ultimately held off, partially because I really wanted to get some of their earlier output first, but also with an album cover this explicit and potentially offensive, I feel like having it just posted up in the background of a video might pose some issues, if not just outright get it taken down. That isn't to say these guys didn't have stellar releases to their name outside of the few I already brought up. It's more that they're just rare, pricey, and generally difficult potential additions to the collection. But don't get me wrong, because I'd love to have pretty much all of their discography on vinyl, including 2013's Race Music, 2017's Rome, 2020 Shrines, or even their Furtive Moments EP from 2014. If you're a big Armand fan who pays close attention to what's going on behind the scenes, you may know these guys released a vinyl-only project earlier this year, which I was way too slow on, so I haven't heard that at all. But if you didn't know, Paraffin here was actually originally put out under the same guise, and then later got distributed on streaming services. So I'm hoping that's the case with their latest LP. Obviously, Billy Woods isn't really someone who needs me to make a case for his independent output, as I just delved back into it a few uploads ago for the 4th time. But Elucid, on the other hand, is a super talented MC and producer who is sort of peppering his solo discography with projects throughout the mid to late 2010s, but personally really caught my attention when he teamed up with R.A.P. Ferreira in 2018, who was still going by Milo at the time, to release their warped and abstract self-titled collaborative LP as Nostrum Grossers. And just as a quick side note, I've always found it interesting how Elucid happened to team up for projects with both artists of the two albums I commonly reference as my favorites of the last decade. This dude has continued building onto this reputable solo career with a handful of projects that include both collaborations and efforts he set out on by himself, with some of the highlights in my opinion being 2020's Shit Don't Rhyme No More, 2022's I Told Bessie, and 2024's Revelator, that dropped just a few months back and will surely make an appearance on my year-end top 50 albums of 2024 list. He has a very idiosyncratic style of rapping that, to be frank with you, didn't initially gel with me the first few times I heard it, but over time I found more and more to admire and enjoy in the way he structures his bars, which I want to display here through his killer part on the track Detoll, which may be my favorite song on the whole LP, with this foggy, atmospheric, and off-kilter loop, and we see both MCs shelling out some of their best performances. I'm gonna start with Elucid as he takes the opening verse on this one, kicking it off with "Hero ain't nothing but a chopped cheese, 92 accord trunk, exotic tree, branches grow through the bag, baggy jeans. Walk away 34 and scene, bring me a dream, squeeze from the hip, lean from the tit, schemes through the rich. Skipping your name, nothing seemed to stick. Fiending for a lick, nothing made you, just a blip. Ain't it a bitch? Just think, what if you could just lay it all to dust? Did it for the rush. Hush tone on landline, white noise Babylon vampire. He a goddamn liar, arrows and ARs. Born of chaos, hey y'all, can't scrub the stain off. This a liberation seance, stay on. Four-headed beast with eight-armed lecker, invoke a name in desperate measures. They who control the weather, whatever. AV Navy leather, naked from the neck up, stash the Black and Decker. But look the Mecca, Hex Throwers Anonymous. Disaster capital economic shit. The words charged inside an amulet. Doubting Thomas's, no such thing as common sense, somber kiss, promises. As dense and imaginative as those bars were, I have to admit that the main reason I chose to read from this track is because the Billy Woods verse here is arguably his best on all of Paraffin, and it's one I've heard so many times I could probably quote his entire part word for word with my eyes closed. I'm not actually going to attempt that though, because with lyricism of this caliber, I really owe the writer the due respect of making sure I quote every line properly. Billy starts off this masterclass in poetic storytelling, rapping, "It's too late for dialogue, man, talk to who? She ain't raised no fool, I wrote through Idaho like Duel. This game, they don't explain the rules. Packed house, pew to vestibule. Blue vegetables, earthy vegetal notes, barely legible, but no less true. Like we won't always be cool, this America somebody gots to lose. Not I, said the cat, off went the gat, let the lawyer litigate while he sit back. The perpetrator was a different shade of black, beat the case, said let him eat cake in his wraps. Service weapon in my face, all I could see was his lips chapped, wouldn't recognize him if I saw him today. Chokehold slowly closed the airway, the sunken place I can't stay, you built it on Indian graves, the lead character exclaims. Christmas Eve, again with the rattling chains. Marley's ghost must have been something I smoked. Streets soot choked, courthouse overflowed. This shit broke, could tell he was waiting for us to go. To break out the coke, she said she's still having fun, she'll see me at home. There's only one feature on this shadowy LP, and it happens to come from another underground artist with an affinity for dark, challenging hip-hop, that being Sketch 185, who actually also had an appearance on my top 50 album list from last year, where I believe he grabbed the 4th place spot through his collaborative project with Jeff Markey. The heavy, industrial, and immersive, he left nothing for the swim back. But while it may be pretty slim pickings when it comes to the guest verses on here, we do have a talented team of producers who cranked out this experimental and creative batch of instrumentals, including August Fanon, Messiah Music, Willie Green, Kenny Siegel, Obliv, Small Professor of Wrecking Crew, and Elucid himself. While I already shared both verses from Detail, I just can't in good conscience leave it out of my favorite tracks, so I'm going to keep that in the top 3, alongside Alternate Side Parking and Root Farm. However, this project is so densely packed with high-quality moments that I really have no lack of songs to recommend as honorable mentions, which for this one would include Sweet Mickey, Rehearse with Ornette, No Days Off, Furman Tapes, If He Holla, Black Garlic, Bob Barker, Vindaloo, VX, and Sudden Death. Thank you for watching my 298th video. Next up, we have an album where it's hard to even think of a description for it since it's so enigmatic and widely discussed. So definitely keep an eye out for that one, and if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what your favorite moments are off this forward-thinking alternative hip-hop release. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.